I began this journey as a Democrat, the party of my father, my uncle. And back then, the Democrats were the champions of the Constitution, of civil rights. The Democrats stood against authoritarianism, against censorship, against colonialism, imperialism, and unjust wars. We were the party of labor, of the working class. The Democrats were the party of government transparency and the champion of the environment. Our party was the bulwark against big money interests and corporate power. True to its name, it was the party of democracy. As you know, I left that party in October because it had departed so dramatically from the core values that I grew up with. It had become the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, big ag, and big money. When it abandoned democracy by canceling the primary to conceal the cognitive decline of the sitting president, I left the party to run as an independent in a system the kind that my father and my uncles thrived in, a system with open debates, with fair primaries, with regularly scheduled debates, with fair primaries, and with a truly independent media untainted by government propaganda and censorship, in a system of nonpartisan courts and election boards. Everything would be different. I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, for the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. The DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. This is profoundly undemocratic. The DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors. Oh, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agent. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression, and that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. Representatives of those networks are in this room right now, and I'll just take a moment to ask you to consider the many ways that your institutions have abdicated this really sacred responsibility, the duty of a free press to safeguard democracy and to challenge always the party in power, instead of maintaining that posture of fear, skepticism toward authority. Your institutions have made themselves government mouthpieces and stenographers for the organs of power. You didn't alone cause the devolution of American democracy, but you could have prevented it. The Democratic Party's censorship of social media was even more of a naked exercise of executive power. This week, a federal judge, Terry Doty, upheld my injunction against President Biden, calling the White House's censorship project, quote, the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America. The media justifies their censorship on the grounds of combating misinformation, but governments and oppressors don't censor lies. They don't fear lies. They fear the truth.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, watching, and listening to the Political Badass Podcast. My name is Eric Simkin. This is my co-host, Damon Galdo. And today we're going to be breaking down why the Democrat Party is not the party that it used to be. It's certainly not the party of yesterday, yesteryear, yesterdecade, yestercentury at all. We're going to be talking about the RFK endorsement and what does that mean to the Republican Party, to Donald J. Trump's campaign, and his path to victory to become the 47th president of the United States of America. We're also going to be talking about some of the Harris plans and ideas she has for the economy. Keep in mind, Harris's father is a radical Marxist emeritus professor at Cambridge University in economics. He also helped form and craft the economics of Jamaica. Last I checked, unfortunately, and I pray for those people there, that the economy in Jamaica is not doing well. Last I heard, there was a man named Barbecue running things. And we're going to also talk about the unrealized gain tax that they have in mind for high net worth people. Keep in mind, they could change that number anytime, and it could come trickle down to us at any time. And of course, we're going to end the show talking a little bit about education from pre-K to 8th grade, 12th grade, and on into college. And I'll share some personal stories and experiences with you on that. So before we get to these things, I'd like to introduce Damon Galdo. He's got some very interesting topics that he'd like to discuss and speak about in a speech he wrote and gave earlier in the week. Here he is. Damon, go ahead, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. I wrote this speech and I gave it out in Idaho. I flew out there for a reason. I'll go anywhere, and I know Eric will too, to get the message out there, to get people out to vote, because we're at a time where I usually don't get afraid, but with my children, I'm starting to get afraid of what's going to happen if this election doesn't go right, and what's going to happen in this country. So it's kind of fight or flight. You know, when your adrenaline kicks in, what are you going to do? You're going to run or you're going to fight? I choose to fight. So I wrote this. I want to address an issue that strikes at the very heart of our constitutional republic and bring you full circle of how political corruption trickles down to our future, our way of life, our children, and why podcasts like Political Badass are crucial to this country by getting the message out to the people. We are a nation divided by political parties. However, we should be united as Americans. There is no doubt that politics of the left have weaponized our United States justice system. The scales of justice are supposed to be balanced, blind to status or political affiliation. Yet in recent years, we've witnessed a troubling shift, one that threatens the very fabric of our republic. This shift is nowhere more evident than in the treatment of former President Donald J. Trump, and in my own experience as a congressional candidate as well. Donald Trump has faced a relentless barrage of indictments, investigations, accusations, and even an assassination attempt. But let's be clear, these actions aren't just about alleged crimes. They're about silencing a man who poses a threat to the far left radical Democrat Party. Trump's policies, his fight for the average American, and his refusal to bow to the establishment make him a target. If Donald Trump weren't a threat, if his message of putting America first didn't resonate with millions, these indictments would never have seen the light of day. He is seen as an obstacle to their agenda, a barrier to the transformation of our country into something unrecognizable. They understand that if they can weaponize the justice system against him, they can do it to anyone who stands in their way. This isn't just about one man. It's about the future of our nation. This kind of insider corruption is exactly what Americans fear when they see the justice system being used as a political tool rather than an impartial arbiter of the truth. Let's not forget the role of the media in all this. The media, once the watchdog of democracy, has become a mouthpiece for the radical left. They peddle misinformation and disinformation, their words they use all the time, distorting the truth to fit their narrative. They spun stories about Donald Trump, crafting a narrative that suits their political objectives. The media no longer serves the public interest. It serves the interest of those who wish to stay in power, no matter the cost. The Democrats only respect the Constitution when it benefits them. But when the Constitution stands in their way of their agenda, they circumvent it, undermining the rule of law in the process. This is not just an attack on individuals like Donald Trump. It's an attack on the principles that this country was founded upon. When justice becomes a tool for political retribution, we move closer to a society ruled by fear and coercion, a society that resembles the communist and Marxist regimes we've seen throughout history. These regimes silenced dissent, crushed opposition, and used the law to serve the few at the expense of the many. What separated the United States from the rest of the world is we came up with a better idea. And the more we embrace globalism, the more we move away from what made us different. Is the future? Is this the future that you want for America? A future where the elitists control the world. We all know that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And one of my favorite quotes from Evan Burke once said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." These words are not merely a reflection on the past. They are a call to action for our present and our future. Evil thrives not just through the actions of those who wish to harm, but through the inaction of those who know better. When good people do nothing, when we allow complacency, selfishness, entitlement, and unchecked individualism to govern our lives, we unwittingly open the door for corruption that leads to a fall of a nation. So complacency, my friends, is a silent killer of societies. It whispers to us that someone else will step up, someone else will take responsibility. But when everyone is waiting for someone else, nothing gets done. Complacency is the breeding ground for corruption, for it allows wrongs to go unchallenged and injustices to go unpunished. That is why our show, our podcast, is crucial to getting out the Make America Great Again message. Selfishness tells us to look out only for ourselves, to prioritize our desire above the needs of others. It blinds us to the suffering of our neighbors and weakens the bonds that hold communities together. When we act selfishly, we forget that our strength lies in our collective effort, that our success as a society depends on our willingness to lift one another up. Entitlement leads us to believe that we are owed something simply by virtue of our existence. It teaches us to take without giving, to demand without contributing. This mindset erodes our work ethic, our sense of duty, and our appreciation for the sacrifices of those who came before us. Entitlement creates a society of takers, not builders, of critics, not creators. Unchecked individualism, though celebrated in our culture, can also be a double-edged sword. When we place our personal desires above the common good, we weaken the very foundations of our society. True freedom is not the license to do whatever you want, but the responsibility to do what is right. When individualism becomes an excuse for moral relativism, we lose sight of the values that bind us together. But we have a choice to embrace the virtues that have always been the backbone of a strong, thriving society. Hard work, responsibility, family, unity, faith, and patriotism. These are the pillars that can keep us grounded. Hard work teaches us the value of effort, the satisfaction of a job well done, and the importance of contributing to something greater than ourselves. It instills in us a sense of pride and accomplishment, reminding us that nothing worth having comes easy. Responsibility calls us to be accountable for our actions, to take ownership for our decisions, and to recognize that we are the stewards of our own lives and the lives of those around us. Responsibility binds us to our families, our communities, and our nation. Family is where we learn love, loyalty, and sacrifice. It is the bedrock of society, the place where values are taught and traditions are passed down. When we prioritize our families, we strengthen our foundation. Unity is our greatest strength. When we come together as one people, united by common values and shared goals, we become an unstoppable force for good. Division weakens us, but unity empowers us to overcome any challenge. Patriotism reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. It inspires us to defend our nation, to honor its history, and to strive for its future. A love of country compels us to protect the freedoms and principles that make our nation great. Whether it be God, in a higher power, or in the inherent goodness of humanity, grounds us in something eternal. Faith gives us hope, courage, and the moral compass that we need to navigate a world fraught with challenges. These virtues are not just ideals to be admired from afar, they are principles to be lived every day. They are the antidote to the complacency, selfishness, entitlement, and individualism that threaten to tear us apart. They are the tools by which we can ensure that evil does not triumph, that our society does not crumble under the weight of its own neglect. I also have a message that resonates deeply with the essence of parenthood and the future of our children. It's a call to action, a call to be proactive rather than reactive, because what we do now profoundly shapes the world our children will inherit. As parents, our primary duty is to safeguard the future of our offspring. We work diligently, we pay our dues, we instill values rooted in our Judeo-Christian heritage. These are the pillars upon which our families stand, the foundation of our society. With our busy lives, we can falter. We become distracted by the noise of daily existence. It's up to us to protect our children from the radical ideas of the far left that represent the few and not the many. I say this and I say it loud. I don't co-parent with the government and never will. To conclude, I have to reiterate that the mainstream media, once a trusted entity, has been hijacked by the agendas far removed from our values. It's imperative that we, as informed citizens, reclaim the narrative, disseminate truth, and counteract the pervasive influence of misinformation. We cannot afford to stand idly by while the very fabric of our nation is unraveled. We must engage, we must educate. It's our responsibility to reignite the flame of patriotism, to uphold the institutions that have pushed our country to the forefront of the entire world. Let's stand together, united in purpose, unwavering in our commitment to safeguarding the future for generations to come. Together, we can reclaim the essence of what it means to be a parent, to be a citizen, and to be an American. Edmund Burke's warning is as relevant today as it was in his time, but we need not despair, for as long as there are good men and women willing to act, willing to uphold these virtues, willing to stand together in defense of what is right, evil will never triumph if the good are unafraid. We must stand up against the political weaponization of our justice system. We must demand fairness, transparency, and accountability from our courts, our media, and our government. We must protect the Constitution and the principles of justice that have made this country a beacon of freedom. Now, we can say that we want change. We can hope that it's possible. We can dream about making a difference in our states, in our country. What I realize most is it's not what we say quietly. It's not what we hope. And it's certainly not what we dream. It's what we do that defines us. That's why Damon Galdo, a construction worker, took a leap and ran for Congress. That's why Eric and I started the Political Badass, and we do this show. And thank you, Eric, for doing that. We are in a time where the media cannot be trusted and has the power to sway elections. That's why our podcasts are so important. So let's build back what we had. Let's vote for America. Let's vote for common sense. Let's vote for Donald J. Trump. And thank you, Eric, for starting this.
It's my pleasure, Damon. It's my pleasure to hear you speak as always. And I am proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be here talking to you today, everybody that's watching and listening. I do want to fact check myself on something. Barbecue, the guy Barbecue, that's a heinous murderer, is actually not in Jamaica. He's in Haiti. And my thoughts and prayers go out with all the Haitian people who are enduring their fight for freedom and against tyranny. I want to take a step back to the video we watched on JFK and how important and momentous it is that the alliance between Donald Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. occurred right before our eyes, and how it occurred is really important. And that is that the Democrat Party obviously is no longer the party of his uncle or father, my father, uncle, grandparents, or anybody else that supported the Democrat Party, as many of us have. And through truth and fact and occurrences, many of us have come to the realization that the Democrat Party is no longer sustainable as an entity that supports the values, virtues, and beliefs of the Judeo-Christian West. So I'd like to summarize a few things that I heard JFK Jr. say. And he said that in his view and in his eyes and from his experience in his family, that the Democrat Party was always considered to be champions of the Constitution, of civil rights. They were against authoritarianism. They were the party of labor for the working class, that believed in full transparency, that stood to protect the environment. And yet now, they're the party of war, of censorship, of corruption, big pharma, big corporations, big agriculture, and really corruption. And so here is a man standing before us that lived, breathed, ate, and slept the Democrat worldview, not just for his entire life, but for his entire legacy of his family. And he stood up and he said, "This is enough. It's not working. It's not going in the same direction." And the question that we have to ask ourselves as Americans is, what do we do to support the notion and to really get the word out that this has happened? I mean, I hope that everyone on the planet can see that first 13 minutes of that speech. And one of the things that really resonates to me is what I put on the screen, and that is that governments and oppressors, they don't censor lies and they don't fear lies. They fear the truth. And the question is, why do they fear the truth? And they is the establishment and the people that are in power right now in all sorts of government and even private industry and institutions. They are the ones that want to defeat capitalism, that want to push us down in the same breath as trying to rise people up. It's redistribution of wealth. These are very basic communist and Marxist ideals that are being pushed, propagated, and influenced upon our youth, upon our middle age, and upon our senior adults by connecting the dots between the ideals that are being propagated by the Harris administration currently, which she is in office. Any of these things she wants to change, she has the power and authority to do, but she's not. Why not? What she wants is far more radical than what the Biden administration was pushing. And here we are, just almost not even 80 days away from the election. And really all we need to hear is the buzz about what are we going to do to get out the vote, whether it be through Turning Point Action. If you're Jewish, you can contact the Republican Jewish Coalition, because I'll tell you, fellow Jews, okay, they're coming for us. They are coming for you if you don't stop it. If you don't stop and just wake up. You don't have to profess this and stand up on your rooftop and yell it to everybody. It would be great if you did. Voting is a secret, private thing that you do. You don't have to talk about it with your friends if you're not comfortable. You don't have to talk about it with your family if you're not comfortable. But what you have to do is vote your conscience when you go into that voting booth. And by the way, I wouldn't suggest going to the voting booth on election day. I want to. We all want to as Republicans and conservatives. But they're beating us at that game. So what we need to do is we need to early vote, or we need to get a mail-in ballot so that there's no excuse for your vote not to occur and for your vote to be counted. RFK Jr. went on to say that what happened in the primary process on the Democrat Party was actually what he called a palace coup. People are afraid to use that word, but that's exactly what it was. He went on to explain that when the Democrats realized that Joe Biden couldn't compete in a free and fair election with Donald Trump, they removed him from the ballot after having been voted for in a free and open primary election, where over 14 million people voted for Joe Biden. I don't know how, but they did. And you 14 million people were asking to change your mind based on what you just saw. Because the Democrats, they say today that they are the party of democracy, Democrat democracy. But even RFK Jr. says that they have broken down democracy as much as they claim to want to protect it. They've destroyed it just within the primary process. Just let that sink in for a second. 14 million people voted to put Joe Biden on the presidential ticket, all at the same time, while everyone involved knew that Joe Biden was not going to be able to compete in a free and fair election. They knew this. He didn't just have a stroke. He didn't have a heart attack. He has a cognitive decline over really years and perhaps decades, and has no business running the country now. And we all know he's not. So just from that simple fact alone, I'm speaking to you, Democrat voters. Okay. I'm speaking to all voters. When I speak to a group of people that have already decided that they are going to vote for Trump no matter what, they are there to the end with Donald J. Trump, as I am, and as many of you are. And then there's people that are going to vote for Harris, regardless of what she says or does or what the information they find, because they're so heavily convinced that she's the best to save democracy. I really don't need to talk to you sides. But when I'm talking to the Trump people, it's not to get your vote. It's to get you to get up and get other people to vote for Donald Trump. And you do that by knocking on doors, contacting your local GOP, your Republican Party. If you don't know where they are or how to find them, you can Google them. You can Google my website, ericsimkin.com. You can go on there and find this information. Find it for yourself. There's two types of media. There's pushed information to you, which is already compiled that you turn on the news and watch it. That includes opinions and biases, no matter what channel you watch. And then there's information that you can go and pull from the interwebs, from the internet. Google, even Google, you got to learn how to do it right. You can't just look at the top results. We know that. But you can find the receipts, the information that you need to make informed decisions for the longevity of your future and your family's future. And that is what is on the ballot. What do you say, Damon? Is that what's on the ballot this year or what?
It's absolutely what's on the ballot. I mean, your message you just put out there too, it can't be more important. And I always hate to say it because Democrats would always say it every election year. This is the most important election of your life. Well, this one is, because if Kamala Harris gets in office, she has no policies, nothing on her website, won't take it. What were it, 37 days now or 38
She will
days?
not give one interview the entire election cycle. That's what I've been told.
Yeah, she won't. Because she knows she'll be exposed. I mean, Trump goes out there, he says what he is. Trump didn't change his policies. He might have got a little bit softer in how he approached things in this election, but his approach. But she, through proxy, through her aides, are leaking different things, and she's not for fracking anymore. Now she's not for getting rid of privatized insurance or anything like that. But she's not saying a word, nothing. And she just reads off a teleprompter, and the media build her. That's my biggest gripe is with the media. They build her up so much, and the joy, and even lied to everybody at the DNC, leaking that Beyonce was going to be there because they wanted people, they wanted viewers. That's what the Democrats do. They will lie, just to get people to watch and get people to watch her give her a speech that night.
What did I tell you about getting people to watch us? It's giving them valuable information, facts, and truth, right? But that seems to be the opposite against the grain of what the political apparatus is doing to us.
You're correct in that.
Right. So we had a primary that RFK Jr. describes as a palace coup with no debate during the primary. They picked, and Joe Biden was just put on there. There was no debate. There was no way for anyone else that really had a shot at winning the primary to be on the primary ballot with Biden. And then when they knew after the debate with Trump that he wasn't going to be able to finish this election cycle, they inserted her.
Yeah.
They inserted her with a vote of delegates, that the delegates are supposed to vote based on what the constituents vote as.
Exactly.
So democracy is dead in the Democrat Party just on its face with that one instance. But if you need the other 1,000 examples, I've got all day. I could sit here and talk about them, and I know them by heart. Why do I know them by heart? Because like I said earlier, it's not just news and information I'm providing you. I can give you my opinion on all this stuff. You know what my opinion is? Everything that you're seeing out there that has nothing to do with America and capitalism is communism. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And that's the truth of what we're seeing in reality. People ask me, Eric, you ran for school board, you got crushed in the votes. I said, yeah, I might have gotten crushed on the votes, but I crushed them with truth and facts, and they don't like that. No, so they came at me just like they came at you, just like they go at Trump, just like they came at RFK Jr. Because the Democrat Party, if you agree with them, you're good. But it doesn't matter if you're black. It doesn't matter if you're white, Latino. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, lesbian, bi, LGBTQIA+, and whatever else is added onto it if you're Islamic. If you say what the Democrat Party wants you to say, you're okay. But if you're in one of those protected subgroups, okay, and you don't follow and toe the company line on the Democrat Party, you are out. You're canceled. Look at Robert F. Kennedy. They came at him. They wouldn't let him go on the ballot. They fought him. The DNC, the Democrat National Convention, the people that run the Democrat Party, not the people in office, the people that are unelected, really, for the most part, unless they sneak onto a ballot to get elected on a committee of some sort. They're running the show. They're the ones using political warfare against our candidates. And I don't agree with everything Robert F. Kennedy says, ever did, or stands for. But I agree with truth, facts, and the idea of a free America, free enterprise, freedom of thought. And most importantly, what he brought to me in that speech was the importance of the First Amendment. The First Amendment promises us a lot of things, and those things are given to us, okay, through the grace of God, not through a state, not through a group of men that sat down and wrote this instrument of power, not from men, not from people, not from social ideologies, but from God. And when you take that away, our rights that were given to us by God, the place to replace that with is the state. And it ain't going to happen if I got something to do with it. But when you look at the First Amendment, we took away Bibles and religion in schools, for example, and it's all under the guise of separation of church and state. That's really not what the church and state separation really meant in the founding documents or ideas of our country that were meant to endure forever. And when you read the First Amendment, it's pretty simple. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion, meaning the state can't come and make a state religion. They are. It's called DEI, mark my words.
Yep.
Or prohibiting the free existence thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble, and in petition of the government for a redress of grievances. And I'll tell you, Damon, I keep saying it over and over. Why did I start this podcast? For a lot of reasons, but the one singular reason that made me say, I'm going to go buy the stuff, I'm going to get outside my comfort zone and sit here and talk to people. What made me do it was the arrest and incarceration of Stephen K. Bannon, who was a very highly trusted advisor of Donald J. Trump. He was called by the January 6th committee to appear under subpoena, and he refused to answer their questions under presidential immunity that he was granted and instructed to use by Donald J. Trump. And today, as we sit here and talk, breathing free air, he is in a Danbury prison in Connecticut for 4 months, as was Peter K. Navarro, who was an economist and also a trusted advisor of Donald J. Trump in the White House, 17 to 20. And he went to prison for 4 months for denying the same subpoena. And truthfully, it came out afterwards that the January 6th committee was not properly formed as a congressional committee. So really, it is a sham trial. He went to prison. He's sitting in prison. And I said, I need to get to work doing his work that he was doing before he got locked up. And there's plenty of people doing it. And it's called becoming a force multiplier. It means don't just go out and vote, but bring 10 people with you. Bring 20, bring 30. My personal goal with this podcast is to bring 10,000 with me. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit that number. I'm going to hit more. But I need each of you to bring at least 10. And you can do that on the Turning Point Action app. Google it. And in the words of Stephen K. Bannon, I'm going to share them with you now. What is my motivation in words by a single human being to do what I'm doing? Maybe you'll find the same type of motivation and inspiration from these words. Take a listen.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
Ask yourself, what is your task and what is your purpose? It's to raise a beautiful family. Of course it is. It's to live the best I can in a free world. Of course it is. My task and purpose right now is to get people to vote for Donald Trump that we're either already going to. Like I said, I don't need to talk to you much. If you aren't going to, I need you to open your ears and I need to speak to you in a way that you'll understand. And I can't speak better than Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can to that point, Damon. I mean, there's advocates out there already speaking the word, preaching the gospel. And our job is to help deliver that message to everybody. And we're trying like hell. I need people to join in. I need you to get engaged, start commenting on the group chats. Get involved on your Facebook groups in your town. Find out where your local GOP is meeting and go help support the candidates running in your town because it's a grassroots movement. He said in this speech, RFK, that democracy is dead in most places, but not at the grassroots level. He got 100,000 volunteers to go out and start pitching for him. And now those volunteers are going to come and start helping pitch Trump to win this election. We need millions of people taking that action. And that's how you do it. Turning Point Action, Republican Jewish Coalition, Trump Force 47. Google that. It's right on donaldjtrump.com under Take Action. And if you don't know what Donald Trump stands for, if I'm speaking to you where you're somewhere in the middle and haven't decided yet, go to donaldjtrump.com and click on platform. It's all right there in front of you. You can see exactly what the platform is. You can't do the same for Harris. I mean, when you do, you start seeing some really crazy stuff, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Damon, what do you think we can do to motivate more people to get involved? What are we going to do here?
Exactly what we're doing right now. You know, like I said in my speech that, you know, evil will never triumph if the good are unafraid. So if you have somebody like us going out there, you know, regular guys just doing this podcast because we want to get the message out there, trying to recruit more people to get people out to vote. I mean, we're doing it right now. We're doing our best. We're going to keep trying. We're never going to stop. We're going to, whatever it takes. That's what it is. So, and that's why RFK's press conference / speech that he gave the other day was so important because he was somebody that was a lifelong Democrat, like I used to be. But he was somebody that realized what was going on with the Democratic Party and what they were doing. They moved way too far left, out of common sense, period, and ruining this country. And he wasn't afraid to go out there and say what he said. Now, his own family is very upset with him for doing that. But he did it because he knew it was right. It takes people that know what's right to do it. That's why I talked about complacency and everything else. And you can't sit back and just let somebody else do it. You have to do it yourself. Everyone has to play a part in this. Everyone has to realize how important this election is, how important it is for the future of our children in this country. So if everyone puts the effort forward, and that's what we're here doing, Eric and I, we're trying to get people to listen and just say, you know what, they're right. And then not even just believe us 100%. I say it all the time. Go on erickson.com, whatever, and look it up yourself. We're giving you the means to look up the information yourself and just telling you what's going on. And you don't have to believe us, but I guarantee you, we will never lie to you. And we'll just give you the information and you can look it up yourself. And Eric, what do you think?
What do I think? I think this. I am immersed in this information. Some people might think I'm a little bit out there. Guess what? I'm not. I'm in there. Okay. I'm in the thick of things, trying to figure things out for you so that I can feed you the information you need to make conscious decisions on how you can best make your efforts. So this comes down to a two-prong approach. It's get out the vote. Okay. This means getting people to actually cast a ballot. Anytime you're walking anywhere and someone starts talking to you, or you hear anything about politics, or something, you're wearing a Trump shirt, Trump hat, you should be wearing them all the time to stimulate this conversation. Because I'm going to tell you, you don't have to be scared anymore to wear a Trump shirt and a MAGA hat. I promise you that you'll get 10 people to come up to you. You might get one idiot that looks at you funny, but guess what? There's still an opportunity to talk to them.
You're right.
Okay. And what do you talk to them about? Well, thank you very much for complimenting my hat, sir. Are you registered to vote as a Republican at your current address? That's the question you ask. So that's a two-prong approach. Okay. We're advertising for it. We're getting approached by what we're wearing. And then we're taking action by asking that person, are you registered to vote as a Republican at your current address? That's all I'm asking you to do for now. And you start doing that. And what's the answer? If they say yes, that's great. If they're not sure, get your phone out, go to ericksimkin.com and pull up early voting. And in New Jersey, if you're in New Jersey, if you're going to pull up that website, you can go and you can have the person put in their information. They're going to need their driver's license number, their address, their name, date of birth, social security number. They type all that in. If you want to send them the link from my website because they don't want you using your phone, it's fine. I did it the other night, actually, at a GOP meeting. Woman said, I moved, and the DMV, what did they do? They changed my affiliation to Democrat, and she didn't know until she got her ballot in the mail. It's crazy. She didn't even know. So no, she did not vote in the primary this year. Right. That's what affects you. So make sure people are registered to vote. Okay. At their current home address. That's what I'm asking you to do. That's called being a force multiplier. If you follow people online that are doing this in a big way, Charlie Kirk with Turning Point Action, people like that, they're getting thousands and thousands of new people to register where they're flipping states from blue to red, literally. Pennsylvania. I mean, I hear all the counties. Scott Pressler, he is unbelievable. He's going out to the gun shows right now. He's going out to the gun stores. That's another thing you can go do. Go out to some businesses and spread the word to the business owner. Find the conservative business owners. Put up a sign, put up a QR code on a sticker with how to register to vote at your home address as a Republican. It can't hurt you. It can't cost you $1 million. It's not gonna. It's time, a little bit of money, maybe, and some effort to save our country. That's what we're talking about, and that's what we're asking you to do. That's just one thing you can do. Okay, the other thing you can do is you can start knocking on doors. Royce White, he's an ex-basketball player in the NBA, and he is running for Senate in Arizona, and he crushed it in the primaries, by the way. He was against the machines. And he beat him with $100,000. They had 10 million or 5 million. But I've been watching him, listening to him. He's filling in for Steve Bannon on the show. And he's a very good speaker. He knows all these talking points. And he said, it's time to get your Bibles and your Constitution and start going door to door and not start knocking. And if that's what it takes, guess what? I'm doing it this week. I'll take a video of it and I'll post it. You're going to see me out there knocking on some doors. And I don't care if they get slammed on me. If that door's open a little bit, I'm going to put my foot in the bottom of it and not let it close. I don't mean that in the physical way. It's about what can I say to somebody that's so disgruntled that they can't even hear the words. You have to find a way to connect with people, my friends. That's how it's going to work. We cannot look at this RFK Jr. Endorsement as the end all be all. It's not. It's going to take every voter that we can possibly muster to show up and vote. Because guess what? The more momentum we get as Republicans, okay, as a MAGA, as a movement, the more they're going to cheat. Okay. That's what's going to happen. Democrats, I'm not saying Democrat voters go out and cheat on the election. There's apparatus. There's an apparatus. There is a system of different ways that they cheat on the vote. I'll give you one that I was talking to somebody about at the New Jersey Camden County GOP meeting. somebody that's involved in election integrity. She said that there's no database to verify whether or not someone's a citizen when they register to vote at DMV.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
So it's a question. Are you a citizen? Now, I will tell you, any illegal alien, okay, that means a non-citizen. If you show up to vote at our voting booths on election day, you're going to be allowed to vote in New Jersey. I'm sorry to say it. But if you do, it's illegal.
Well, they already broke the law already.
You broke the law by coming here. But if you're being motivated and influenced by some other entity to go out and vote in a federal election, you've broken the law. And I think I heard somewhere that there might be a policy coming down the line that if you did do that and voted in a federal election while not being a citizen, you will be deported. And I mean it. And I hope it happens to any illegal that votes. I mean, you know, my stance on DEI is deport every illegal. I know we can't deport every illegal. You start with the violent ones, you start with the criminals in jail, because these other countries have already opened their jails to our open border. And that's who's coming here. That's who we're paying for. I work very hard, Damon, and I know you too. I know you do.
Yeah.
And most Americans do. There are some that don't, that are slaves to a system. And I can see how that mentality is filtering into the people who aren't. It happened to me personally this week. Very difficult. I went through some difficult times dealing with things and seeing what I'm seeing within my own family and the views that are promulgated and the results of those views of people being scared to stand up. People that are scared to do something today because it might affect their future and their family in the future, or their inability to produce income. Only if that could happen, only if Harris is elected. Because I promise you, none of your freedoms are going to go away under the Republican Party. That's not what we're about. We will welcome you. I say we welcome every single supporter of RFK Jr. into the Republican Party with open arms.
Absolutely.
Because their leader had the sense and the knowledge to say, wait a second, this is wrong, and I am done caving in, and I am done not saying anything about it, because I stopped years ago not saying anything about it. I can't help myself, Damon. I think you know.
I can't either. I mean, that was so great about what RFK did. And like you said, it's not the end all be all. We're still in the fight for this election. But something you mentioned earlier about voting, no one has to know who you vote for. You don't have to tell anybody. It's up to you if you want to or not. But the fact that I'm wearing this, fight Trump shirt, he's wearing the Trump shirt there. Now, to be honest with you, it's getting a lot better. People are starting to stand up and they're starting to realize that this woke change in America, it's killing our country. It's killing our economy. It's killing the future of our children. So when I went to the airport, I flew to Idaho last week. I was wearing a Trump shirt, not this one, but one similar. And I be honest with you, I had a little bit of fear in the back of my mind, like, hey, are they the TSA going to like drag me aside and I'll do the special check, how they do a random check just because I'm wearing a Trump shirt.
They give you a body cavity search.
Yeah. Fun. So, but I really was thinking that. I'm like, are they going to do this? But then when I got through there, when I got up to the TSA and I was going through the line, there was multiple TSA agents that said, hey, I like your shirt. I can't really affiliate with any party, but I just want to let you know, I like your shirt. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And then even when I got on the plane, there was people that didn't look at me sideways, like you said before, but there was multiple people like, oh, nice shirt. I like that. I'm like, that's great. That's what it should be. That it should wear, even if someone was wearing a Kamala Harris shirt, I wouldn't say I like your shirt, but I'm not going to, be pissed at them that they're wearing a Kamala Harris shirt. You want to wear it, you wear it.
Why? Why wouldn't you be pissed? I mean, seriously, no, I'm kidding. Here's the bottom line, though. What's interesting about that statement, Damon, is that you don't see anybody wearing a Harris Walls shirt.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I haven't seen any signs. I mean, I'm starting to wonder, like, how much they're going to start paying people to put signs on their properties. I mean, when you get to 10,000, I'm thinking about it. Just so you know, if you drive by my house, anybody, and you see a Harris Wall signs, I sold out for at least 10 grand. Never going to happen, ever. Okay, but that's what it's going to come to, because I mean, who would want to? I mean, I got my Trump sign on the lawn. Okay, I deal with my township when they tell me I can't have political signs on my lawn more than 30 days before an election. You know what I told them? Yeah, before you Democrats were elected in this town, okay, we used to have election day. Okay, so 30 days before November 4th, you'd be good. So September 4th, you could put your signs up. When's election day start, Damon? No one knows.
That is a good point. That is a very good point that you just made, because I went through that with my HOA. when I put a sign out there, was when Ed Durr was running for Senate, and my HOA said you can't have political stuff out there. And I said they said it offends people. I said, well, you tell them I'm offended, they're offended. I'm allowed to put it up 21 days before the election, and I don't put it up actually 7 days before the election. But that was a good point that you made. Now that you have early voting, the mail-in ballots, does that rule apply?
Well, let me tell you how I figured it out, Damon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get an email after I put up my sign for running for school board on 4 houses, two running mates, a friend of mine, and my own. Okay. These liberal loser lunatics were driving around town, obviously by my house. They come by all the time. I have them on camera. They came by and they turned me into the town for having these signs up. So I get a nastygram email from the township saying, Mr. Simpkin, you need to remove your signs. The ordinance blase says 30 days before election, you can have your signs. So one of the people I'm running with actually brought to my attention that that's not how it's working anymore, that there is no 30-day time period to November 4th at the time. That was the date. So I was like, you know what? You're right. Thank you. So I sent an email back saying, before you Democrats were in power, we used to have election day. Now we don't. I actually could have put this up 60 days ago, and I didn't. So they said to me, Mr. Simpkin, as of this moment, if you don't take your sign down, we're sending somebody over to take the sign down for you. Well, guess what? You just peed in my Cheerios and you made me have a bad day, Mrs. Counselor. So my response to that was, if you come on my property and touch my sign, you'll be trespassing and you will be treated as such. And that brought on a whole other string of lawyers against me. Yeah. I don't care. I was right. Because when you have facts and truths, my point is, you don't have to be afraid to take a stand. And I am not afraid to tell facts and truth. That I can promise you. So that's what happened with my sign story. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. This is a sensitive topic. Price and food control. What do you say, Damon? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it doesn't work. I mean, it's just like communism, Marxism, socialism. That has never worked. That's why America became so great. We came up with capitalism, the better idea. We came up with our Constitution, but nobody ever had before. Nobody ever even touched that, to where it belongs in the hands of the people. And the people are the government, not Democrats that are in line and want to be globalists and want to be. They want tyranny is what they want, and it's not going to work. And it's the same thing. It's like if I was saying to Eric earlier, like say if I sell bottles of water, and in order to manufacture these bottles and fill up the water and all that, it costs me 99 cents to do it, and they go for $1.50. If the government tells you no, you can't, you got to sell it for $1. I'm going to make 1 cent off of it. Then I'm going to have to lay off my employees. My business will go under, and then you'll have not enough water to go around. It's the same thing with food. You put it on food prices, then people aren't going to produce food for the people. You'll wind up with bread lines like the Soviet Union had, Venezuela, Cuba, all it. I mean, we already saw it happen. Like, why go back to it? That's what I don't understand. Why go back to what we already know what fails?
I'll tell you why, because the agenda is communism and Marxism. And when I say Marxism, a lot of people just look at me with a blank stare, actually, because they don't really know what it means. It's an economic policy process is really what it comes down to. Marxism is the opposite of capitalism. America is a capitalist society. Okay. You eat what you kill, call it commission. You make money, you make income based on how hard you work and what your capabilities are, your merit, and all those types of things. And that's why we see all that stuff disappearing, because under Marxism, okay, everyone gets the same. Equity means that you work for the state and everyone gets the same paycheck no matter what you do. If you're a manager, maybe you get a few shekels, a few dollars more in your paycheck. Okay, so you can go to the commissary and buy a few more soybean products that you're going to eat, and maybe a couple extra vaccines for people. That's what Marxism means. It's an economic process that takes everyone down to the lowest possible level you could possibly imagine and still survive on Earth, because that's all the government can really give you. So let's talk about price fixing. I read this online. Damon, I forget the guy's name that wrote this, but it was pretty powerful to me. When the government announces that grocery retailers, they're not allowed to raise their prices, right? That's the first step. That's what's going to happen. They're going to say, you cannot raise your prices on food. This is on the price fixing rig here. Grocery stores who operate on a 1 to 2% margin, they just can't survive. And the suppliers, they're able to raise the prices. So the next thing the government's going to do is say, all right, so the food stores, they're going to have to fix their prices. But what about the food suppliers? They don't have to fix their prices yet. So the only way to fix that is you start having your food suppliers fix prices too. And then stores that are in lower income areas, the very people that these price fixings are supposed to help, people in low income, minority type people, they start to make less money than those in higher end areas. So
Yeah.
we're hurting the working class, we're hurting the minorities, the inner city people. And then basically you're going to see food deserts, in the suburbs, because businesses aren't going to be able to sustain their businesses without having profit that is normal in a capitalist society. The margin of food producers, it starts to erode. The grocery chains, they've got nothing on their shelf. They repurpose the stores to sell more non-control fixed priced items. I can give you an example of those types of stores. Walmart, Target,
Mhm.
they're set up for this already because they're like a little department store where they can sell you other stuff that you need besides food. So that when this comes, they're not solely basing their profiteering on food. And then the food producers, they're competing to secure inventory. That doesn't drive prices down when you have a competition to get a limited supply. We all know that, supply and demand. The more supply that you have, the less demand there is. The less demand is the opposite. The small grocery chains, they start to shut down, and only the larger ones can survive. Smaller food producers, they go out of business. And as the supply chain breaks down, because these are all supply chains based on the profit being paid for the materials that we're purchasing, in this case, food. When that breaks down, the cost of energy going up, now we can't ship stuff elsewhere. And what starts to happen? You got lines at the food stores. Where's that from? You ever heard that?
Yes.
You heard it from Russia. That's where my wife's family came from. Okay, they left communism. They left communism to provide a better life for the children. Marxism, communism, socialism. They left that with nothing. They left communism and Marxism with nothing on their backs. They came to America with the idea and the dream to provide for a better future for their children, and they have. And they did a phenomenal job, and I'm doing a phenomenal job with their offspring and their grandchildren to make sure that they have a better life. I'm doing the best I can, Damon. It's hard.
Yeah, it's all we can do. But you know what it does? I mean, all the Marxism that you put out there and explained it very well. It stops innovation. It stops people from wanting to create. If everyone's the same and everyone gets the same as everyone else, and no matter what you do, that's the whole thing with DEI and everything else. No one's going to want to innovate. We'll stop moving forward. And I'm sorry, isn't that Kamala Harris's slogan? We're not going backwards, we're going forward, something along those lines.
I actually stopped listening to Kamala Harris and what she had to say because she's doing this thing of joy, right? Okay.
Yeah.
The last time that I heard that was from history in Nazi Germany, what they were doing before the war in about 1933, 1935, when Hitler was coming to power. They basically were giving away free vacations to all the Aryan people in Germany, very cheap, 35 marks, which is like $20, less than that today. And you go on these vacations so you can kind of recharge yourself, recharge your batteries. Why? To prepare for the war against humanity that Hitler was just about to start. You follow my drift? Do you connect the dots on that, Damon? That's what they were doing with the Joy campaign under Hitler. And here we have these two, I can't even use a word to describe them. So you have Harrison walls, and that's what they're doing. And that's what they're getting ready to do to us. I mean, I might not be, the mass extermination of people, but it's going to happen because going back to food price fixing, shockingly, the government struggles to operate the most complex industries on the planet, and the entire food supply chain starts to implode. And the last thing that happens in this cycle is that communism, mass starvation, and the end of America quickly ensues. And that's what I'm trying to avoid by waking people up, talking to people on the right, left, and center. Let's get together and unify, just like Trump and RFK Jr. just unified. Because if you remember just a few months ago, Donald Trump said, what's going to unify the party? It's not just the party, it's the world, it's the free world. And that's success. And exactly. I can assure you, we will achieve no success unless your objective is the demise of culture under Harrison walls. And that's where I'm going to leave it today. Damon, and where are you going to leave it for us?
I'm going to leave it with this. Like you said about Marxism and everything else, how it stops innovation. And you talked about the DNC, how everything was joy. And it's propaganda is what it is. And one of the biggest propagandists was Stalin. Now, there were, they put out in newspapers, everything about him, and they used the word joy too, and how friendly he was and how he would help people. The man had mass executions of close to 1 million people. So it's the same thing. I'm not saying that Kamala Harris is going to murder 1 million people, but I'm just saying it's the same concept. It's when you control the public through propaganda, through media, and you just blow smoke, and that's all you worry about, with no policies, with no sign of trying to achieve a goal, and just we are going backwards. And that's where I'm going to leave it there, because I'm not going backwards. I know that. I know you're not going to go backwards. So she can take her slogan and shove it. But I know that with this podcast, with you, with everything I'm going to do going forward for my children, for your children, for everyone else's children, I'm moving forward, and I want to fight the fight as best I can.
And I'm going to leave it with Deuteronomy 6:7. And thou shalt teach them diligently to thy children, and they and them is the word of God. Please take a listen to Stephen K. Bannon and what he has to say as we exit the show. He talks about the economy and why they're doing to us what we're doing. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless the United States of America.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We live in neo-feudalism. This is not capitalism. This is where you have a underclass, right? A lumpen proletariat almost is taken care of by the state. You have the very wealthy, and you have this kind of neo-feudalist working class and middle class in the middle that pays for everything. And the guys at the top, we've socialized the risk, that $1 trillion of infusion, right? Remember, the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve on the morning of September 18th, 2008, when they're in the Oval Office talking, is $880 billion. The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve on January 17th or January 20th of 2017, when Donald Trump raises his hand, is $4.5 trillion. The most progressive president in the history of our country, President Obama, saved the wealthy. And here's how they did it. They just turned on the taps of liquidity. We call it, the technical term is quantitative easing. Right. The not technical term is called bailing out the people who are guilty. Okay? So essentially, if you owned anything, you had the greatest 10-year run in history.
Wait.
Yep.
Let's move to the TARP vote. And whether you think, so now all of that is happening.
You have to do TARP, the first one you have to do.
Yeah.
You know why? Your fiduciary, when a guy like Bernanke walks in and says, I need $1 trillion, right? You don't have time to debate. History's going to look at you, and he says, the American financial system is going to collapse in 72 hours, and the world financial system 2 days after that, you have global anarchy. There's not a person on earth. I don't hear these libertarians and all these, let capitalism take place. Right. No. When they come in and ask for the first $1 trillion in an emergency, I believe you have to say, okay, we got to do it. I don't know what went on here, but if you're telling me this is going to save me and at least get down the road, I'll do it. But remember, that's the first $1 trillion. We kept on for another $3.5 trillion. $3.5 trillion. This is just bailing out the people that caused the problems. Got to think about it for a second. Goldman Sachs didn't lose any equity. None of the partners really missed any bonus payments. None of GE still in business. AIG, it all still exists. All the donors. Okay, the reverse side of this, remember, there is a corollary to this. It's quite powerful. And we know from the notes of the Federal Reserve, a guy named Richard Fisher, the president of the Federal Reserve of Dallas, argued this in the room constantly. He said, by doing this quantitative easing, which you're just flooding the zone with liquidity, we will save the institutions. And we will save anybody that's a big real estate holder or a hedge fund or bank. But he said, there's a huge reverse here. Number one, savings accounts, you're going to go to zero interest rates. Savings accounts are going to go to zero. So 5,000 years of the Western tradition, back to the Marty Bannons, which is be a good householder. Get a wife, get a mortgage, get some kids, and you save your money. Well, now if you save money, you're a sucker. Because it's broken the trust. That's the trust is broken. If you save money, you're a jerk. because you're not going to get any interest pay. In fact, the banks are going to charge you. So there's been you can't put money away to save into the system. Number two, the pension funds. The pension funds are going to be destroyed. Today we have a $9.5 trillion gap between the obligations of the pension funds and what we've earned off the pension funds. Why? Because it went to zero interest rates, and the bonds that they can buy have no juice in them. Right? The other thing is public schools and all this. Even communities that are not leveraged can't issue bonds because there's no juice in the bonds because the negative interest rate is 1.5%. We've essentially put the burden on the bailout on the working class and middle class. That's why nobody owns anything.
Right.
But the millennials today are nothing but the 19th century Russian serfs. They're better fed. They're better clothed. They're in better shape. They have more information than anybody in the world at any point in time. But they don't own anything. They're not going to own anything. Okay, and they're 20%. If you mark in time against their parents, they're 20% behind in their income, and there's no pension plan in the future. They're all gig economy. We've literally destroyed the middle class in this country.
Okay.
And both political parties. By the way, this is not about Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
This is the way the system works, and this is the way the system comes together to protect itself and to move itself forward. Okay. And so because nobody understands even the rudimentaries of finance, right? And they keep the public kind of economically illiterate.